I'm feeling way too low to start this night, but I want to
Not too bad at all. And are we ready to do this episode?
I think so.
All right, well, let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining the Nut Up Show, a podcast where we sit down and talk about pretty much all things related to our fitness journey and what we're learning along the way.
Yeah.
And what I want to talk to you about today, as you've probably seen already, if you've read the description of this podcast, or maybe you've just clicked on one randomly, who knows? I don't know. We are going to talk about insulin today. And there's a point that I want to bring up, and that's 2 years ago when I started my other fitness journey. It was the 365 days of fitness, which started off really well, but then of course failed spectacularly. I thought, like, I never think that I know everything, but I thought that I was pretty confident and that I know what I'm doing. I know what needs to get done. And I understand the science of what's happening in my body. And even at that time, I was like pretty much thinking kind of along the lines of calories in, calories out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because now starting this new journey, and and then when we're researching things about fasting and everything that happens to your body, this whole thing of insulin has been brought up.
Yeah.
And I had no idea,
Neither did
literally zero clues that it had anything to do with how successful you can be in any kind of weight loss journey. It is like mind blowing, the stuff that we've learned since then. And even since we've just started this journey. Yeah. And I think back in that 365 days of fitness, I mean, I think I lost maybe 25 pounds or something like that. And already I'm at like 45 pounds and still going strong. Yeah. And I'm not reducing the amount of calories I'm eating, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Like there's nothing crazy going on in terms of what I'm eating. I'm just eating basically the regular food that I used to eat. Of course, just trying to be more mindful about being healthy. But it's like this whole new world of stuff opens up, and it's like, how much more things do we even have to learn about this? And I'm like, now I feel like we know literally nothing.
We don't even know what we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. Right. And that's kind of like, there's this principle, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like this scientific principle where it's like, I probably showed this to you before, but it was like, it's all about people's perception of what they know and how much they actually know. And people that know like literally nothing, they think that they're experts. Yeah. But then as they start to understand and learn more, they're like, oh, my reality or my confidence in how well I know this thing diminishes, right? It's like, oh shit, I actually don't know anything about the stuff until you study for years and years and you become a master. Then you slowly start to think that you know what's going on.
Even then, I think then you realize how much you don't know, how much there is that you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's something that I think so many people could really keep that in mind as they go about their life, because especially when it comes to stuff about like fitness or nutrition or whatever it is, people are like, yeah, I kind of know calories in, calories out, or, just eat smart, or I'll just reduce the amount of calories I have, or, it's like, no, dude, there is so much more to it. And there's a wealth of stuff to talk about. And what I want to do today is, because this is actually funny, on our last podcast, you mentioned about your science being tight, like super tight.
Yes.
And I think this is a good time for us to talk about this tightness, if you will, and kind of just talk about one small little piece of what we've learned, and that is about our good friend insulin, and seeing how important it is, because I think this concept has been the key for me to lose 45 pounds in 100 days or whatever it's been so far. So it's I think it's really good. And so let's just see how tight our science actually is, and let's talk a little bit of science. And first and foremost, and I'm going to ask you, because I always ask you these questions too, because that's kind of how it goes, and I might as well just do it in a podcast and just record it, because I'm still learning and I'm learning from you. So just what the fuck is insulin? Like what is, because you always hear about it with like diabetes or type 2 diabetes or type 1 obviously as well too. And, but just what does that have to do about weight loss? Right. So just, what is diabetes? What is diabetes?
We'll get to diabetes. Let's talk about insulin first.
What is insulin?
So just an aside, it's really funny because you're saying talking about our knowledge base and everything. And it's like, that's exactly how I feel. I don't feel qualified to talk about insulin at all. Yeah. But anyways,
I haven't gone to medical school and done like 10 years of whatever.
But we do know quite a bit from our research. Yeah. But so it's just a hormone. It's a hormone that the pancreas releases in response to anything that we eat. So anything we eat, it gets broken down. Carbs are broken down to glucose. Protein is broken down to amino acids. And fat, I think it's triglycerides that it's broken down to.
Okay. So hang on.
Yeah.
Back up a second.
Whoa,
So it's a hormone that as soon as you ingest anything, it gets released.
Fat, basically fat, not so much, just because fat is a whole different animal, but definitely, absolutely carbs. Protein doesn't elicit a huge response because it's not glucose. Because the main job of insulin, you can think of the pancreas as like dispatch. It's like the dispatch that tells the cops where to go. And so insulin is like the traffic cop, and it gets sent out into your bloodstream, and it's, shuttling cars or sugar where to go. And so it's telling the glucose, the sugar, to go into your cell, and it has the key that opens up the door to the cell.
Okay. All right. So hang on. I'm a little bit
for sugar.
I'm already getting confused here. So let's back up a little bit before we start getting into any analogies. So different things that you eat trigger different types of responses of insulin, right? So like you're saying so fat and protein don't trigger an insulin response as much as like carbohydrates would.
Yeah. And because fat doesn't even, I don't think it necessarily goes into your bloodstream. It goes into your lymphatic, vessels, into your lymph. So it's not even in your blood necessarily when you eat it. But definitely carbs, it elicits that response, the insulin response. Protein, not so much. The thing with protein is it's broken down into amino acids, but if you eat too much protein, then it gets turned into glucose. Okay.
All right. Let's dumb this down. Let's keep it really, really simple. You're saying a lot of things is really great, but let's try to keep this as simple as possible, because you're throwing, even I'm getting to the point where I'm a little bit confused. So just the basic of it is that you eat something and it triggers an insulin response. So then let's talk about, before we get into this complex stuff, is what exactly does insulin does, and why is it important to understand that it does have a response? Like, what does it do?
So it opens up the door to the cell for sugar. So your cells need sugar. Your body needs sugar for energy. You have to have it.
Yeah.
So insulin is basically the key that opens up the door to the cells and allows the glucose, the sugar, to get into the cells so that your cells can then use it for energy. So if you don't have insulin, then you can't get that sugar into your cells. So people that have type 1 diabetes, their pancreas, it doesn't produce insulin, or it doesn't produce nearly enough. So they basically could eat all that they want. And that's why you'll see a lot of, before people are diagnosed, they're very thin, even though they're eating a lot, because they can't get any of that energy into their cells. And basically it stays in their bloodstream and they pee it out with sugar.
So you have a meal, or you have any kind of food, your pancreas secretes insulin, which then tells the cells to open up and take this energy in the form of sugar. As it gets broken down into sugar, and it goes into your cells. And then your body uses that. Your cells use it. Your cells use that for energy, for whatever you might happen to be doing.
Yes.
If you have insulin in your body, what does that do to your body's ability to burn fat? So
that's a good question. So insulin, that's its first job, is it directs glucose into your cell. That's why I said it's like a traffic cop, right? It's directing the glucose into your cell, and it has the key to open up the door to the cell for glucose. So its second job is fat storage. So it helps your liver. Once your cells are all full of glucose, any leftover that you've eaten, like if you still have glucose going around, but your cells are all full, that extra glucose, that extra sugar goes to your liver. And your liver takes that and it makes it into a storage form of glucose called glycogen.
Okay.
And so insulin helps with that process, and it's for fat storage, and it turns eventually, if that glycogen can be turned then into fat.
And within the liver?
I think so. This is one thing I'm not really sure. But that would be my guess. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
insulin helps with this, right? So insulin, once the cells are all filled up with sugar, it says, okay, well, now take whatever's still left over, goes to the liver. It says, put it into glycerin. Glycerin?
Glycogen.
Glycogen. Okay. And that in turn is going to get turned into fat.
Yes. If there's too much, if you've already made it as much, because the liver can only hold so much glycogen.
Yeah.
And so once it's full, then any extra is made into fat.
So basically like your cells are full, your liver's full.
So here's a really good analogy. I'm going to borrow a little bit from Dr. Fung from the Guide to Fasting. But I also had my own kind of spin on it.
Sure.
So think about it like you go out to a restaurant and you've eaten all that you can. And so, but there's still some left over. So you get a doggy bag and take it home. So that's basically your cells, right? They put as much sugar as they can in there but they're still left over. They have a little doggy bag. So then when you get home from the restaurant, you throw that doggy bag into your fridge. And that's your liver with the glycogen. You put that in your fridge.
Okay.
And then anything left over from there, if your fridge is full, well, you can't stuff anything more into your fridge, into your liver. So then you put it into your freezer. And that's like the long-term storage, which is our fat.
Just fat.
Yeah. So that's the best analogy I can come up with.
And where's insulin in all this? In that analogy.
So insulin is mediating all this fat storage. It's putting the sugar into the cell. And then once the cell's full, then it's like, okay, then we got to make glycogen for the liver. Once the liver's full, okay, then we got to make that into fat because we have to store it.
Okay.
And that's an evolutionary advantage for us because we needed to find a way to store fat in case we were in times of famine, like back in the day.
Okay. So leading to that, what happens then when you want to go into your freezer to burn energy?
So as long as there's insulin around, you cannot get to your fat freezer. It's under lock and key. Insulin is the cop. Insulin's the cop. It won't let you in to that freezer because its whole purpose is fat storage. So it's not going to let you into those fat stores.
So fat storage and I guess the sugar into your cells as well too, which is I guess kind of the same thing because
it's storing, right? Yeah. So that's its job.
Energy storage, even to think about that because it's not even storing fat per se. Or maybe it is, I guess, but when it's putting sugar to your liver and turning it into glycogen. That's kind of, I guess it's the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as that's there. So this is why it's really interesting. We've been sold this story of you need to eat all these meals. Like you need to keep your metabolism firing. You need to eat like 2 to 3 times a day, but you'll lose weight. However, it's not, whenever that insulin is present, you can't get at those juicy fat stores. It's not going to happen.
Well, so
like for long term.
Yeah. So you were just something interesting there that you said if you do eat lots of meals during the day, you'll still lose weight. So, but how can you do that if you're eating? Because if you're constantly eating meals throughout the day, you're gonna always basically have insulin.
Yeah.
So how is it that if that insulin's there, your body is still able to lose fat?
Well, and so this I'm not 100% sure about, and this is also one of my questions. But what makes most sense to me is that's just basic, I guess, not physics, but just like calories in, calories out. And so you're burning calories, and I guess that's part of it.
And you're burning calories from where?
Well, I guess your basal metabolism, what you need just to be alive, and then anything else that you're doing on top of that, like exercise or working out. So like that would be my estimation, but the whole point is it's not, I think that's how it starts out when you start a diet like that. When you're reducing calories and you're eating multiple times a day, then you're going to be burning off more like when you're taking in. Yeah. And I think that's just like physics, right?
Yeah. And it could be a thing too, because if they are reducing the amount of calories when they go to bed, maybe they're still in a somewhat of a fast. So maybe within that 8 hour, the insulin does go down. Maybe it's not like, I think too, maybe it's not like 100%. Like as soon if there's a trace insulin, you're not going to burn fat forever. It's like, no, it's like, there's probably a balance in there that. But
then the whole problem is on any type of calorie restriction, your metabolism's going to slow down.
It's eventually going to slow down
because your body wants to keep you alive. And if you're not getting enough calories just to sustain your everyday needs, it's going to be like, whoa,
we need to turn down how much energy we burn, because
that's why you get cold. And that's why you feel a little sluggish. Like that's why,
if you've been cutting your calories,
because your body's just like, you got to shut this shit down, man. You got to keep you alive.
Yeah. And it's really quite interesting because you would think that that would happen if you're doing fasting.
Yeah.
But it turns out that it's actually the opposite.
The complete opposite.
Yeah. So when you're fasting, your metabolism, I guess studies have shown that your metabolism goes up during a fast. I mean, not like it's going to go crazy up, but at least it's not reducing like people would think like, oh, your body is going into starvation mode, so therefore we need to cut down the energy. It's like, no, we need to up the metabolism because you need to be prepared because think about the hunter-gatherer kind of sense. Like you need to be able to pounce on the animal or go hunting or whatever it is you need to do, or to go walk long distances because you need to forage for berries or whatever it is you happen to be. You can go days without having any food. So you can't be getting weaker and weaker. I mean, you're obviously going to, but you can't just go from zero to like dead and then that's it, right? Exactly. Because our species would not survive. We need to be able to go days, even weeks without food because
that's just how it was.
That happens and your body needs to be adapted and be able to sustain that.
And that's the whole point of insulin was it obviously was an evolutionary advantage for us to be able to store fat in that way.
Yep.
So
and it's a funny thing too because the whole thing is what we were talking about earlier before is that carbohydrates especially really triggers insulin, and that's the big, like just having sugars and you know your breads and pastas and all the fun food, right? So all that stuff really triggers an insulin response. But it's really funny that when your body's so adapted to having this, and I remember this especially too when I was eating eating lots a day, but small, but like pasta meals. I'd have a thing of pasta, and you know I'm a pretty big guy at this time, having a plate of pasta, and then I'd eat it, and then like an hour or two later, I'm like, I feel starving. It's like this crazy hunger, and you think, well, why is my body starving when I literally have like 60 pounds of extra fat there? Like, eat the damn fat. Like, what's wrong with your body? Well, sorry, go ahead. That's
a whole other thing that we can talk about later because that has to do with hunger hormones and again that's another adaptation for you to keep alive, because if you have depleted everything in your cells and in your fridge, but you have insulin present and you can't get to your fat stores, your body's like, well,
exactly, that
wants to make you hungry so you'll eat again so it can get energy.
But that's what I mean though, is the whole misconception, or not misconception, but not understanding insulin and how that plays a role in weight loss and fat loss especially, is that you can fall into this trap of trying to, like, I'm just going to eat lots of small meals throughout the day. But then you find that you might always be hungry. You might be eating more because, your body might actually be out of energy. I might be out of glucose. But yet because your insulin is so high, because you're constantly eating,
you can't get to the fat.
So that your you are like starving, but yet, like you said, you have this freezer, but the freezer's under lock and key. You can't get at this food. And it's like your body's like, what the hell? And it's just the most frustrating thing. And then and this is the thing when people combine, I think, calorie restriction with trying to eat like 6 small little meals a day, is they get to the point where they're always feeling hungry, always hungry, because they're just eating small little meals, and they're having lots of carbs on top of that. And what's the other thing? What's the other thing that I... So what did I say? So they're eating lots. They're having lots of carbs. And because they're cutting the amount of calories that their metabolism starts to slow down over weeks, and then people end up to the point where they just end up they have to binge. It's like your hormones. It's like you can't control it. It gets to the point where it's just overwhelming. Like, I don't care how much willpower you have. It's like you can't overcome this. And that's why like all of these Biggest Loser type diets where it's calorie restriction and just, exercise as much as you can, like they crash and burn.
Well, that's why they've never had a reunion show because they've all gained the weight back. Yeah. And the thing is it's not a sustainable way. You can't keep lowering your calories until you're eating 500 calories a day. You can't live like that.
Because your body's going to, guess what? Your body's going to be adapted to burn 500 calories a day.
And not only that, the studies that I've seen that they've done of these people from The Biggest Loser, they've messed up their metabolism so bad, and their metabolism has tanked so huge, and it takes forever to fix it. Yeah. Like they have chronically low metabolic rates.
Yeah. They should start fasting or something like that. I have no idea. I don't know how they would fix it.
That would help.
Probably
absolutely. But
So it's just so fascinating. So throughout this journey that we've been on, it's this concept of understanding insulin, understanding how my body responds to it, and understanding that fasting helps you, number one, deplete your is it not deplete your insulin, or is that, or just
reduce your insulin,
and then reduce your insulin, allow your body to burn fat. And then when you're fasting, of course, there's no food, or no
so no insulin response,
no glycogen, any of that stuff. And then it allows your body time to just say, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to start burning fat now, because that's all there is to it. And when your body's doing that, what I find too is that the hunger goes away. And you'd think after not eating even for just 18 hours that like, oh, I'd be super hungry. Sometimes it's not that bad. It takes getting used to. You have to get used to it. But once you are,
like I said, this is hard because it's all like, we're looking at it as insulin and just in a silo, but like the hunger and everything, like it all,
of course,
it's all a big holistic thing. And I think, but definitely, because your hunger comes and goes in waves. And that's definitely what happens.
I've been reading to some studies that it's just your hunger comes and goes in waves, but it comes and goes in waves as to what your body is adapted to eating.
Well, because part of hunger is a conditioned response.
Well, exactly.
Right? Like think of Pavlov's dogs, right?
Ring the bell and they start salivating because it's just an association.
Condition it. Yeah. So a lot of it is in your head.
And that's what ours is. Like, oh, well, you're hungry at 8 o'clock because you always eat at 8 o'clock. Then that's when you're, what's the hormone that triggers ghrelin or something like that? Ghrelin. Yeah. So that's the hormone that tells your body that, hey, you're hungry. And then your stomach will start rumbling or whatever it does. And if you just wait a bit, it just passes. Your body's just like, oh, I guess there's no food. And then it just goes down. And then it cycles, of course. Breakfast time goes up, lunchtime goes up, supper time it goes up.
But then I think what we've noticed is like, because we generally don't eat breakfast, I'm no longer hungry at breakfast.
I'm just fine without having breakfast. I haven't had it in months, I think.
I know, me too.
I haven't had breakfast. And now I'm finding lunchtime, I'm not getting hungry. Sometimes like my stomach will still start growling and it's like, I'm at work and it's like, it's like, come on. And it's like 3 o'clock or something like that. But like the typical noon, I got to eat kind of thing. It's like, that's gone. That is gone. And I think for the best. And then for me, when I eat, I know I could eat, like I don't just eat a small little meal because I'm like, oh, I want to reduce my cost. Like, no, I'll eat like a big thing as much as I could eat within like kind of an hour window. And I'm stuffed. And then I'll wake up in the morning and be like, I lost a pound. It's like, I just ate a huge plate of food. Like it's crazy. So it's all understanding the process of what happens when you eat and what are the chemical processes in your body that takes place.
I think the thing after like really researching this, and not just reading random books or listening to random podcasts, but actually like reading the scientific journals and the studies that have been done, it actually makes me furious how they treat type 2 diabetes.
Do you want to get into that? I guess we can get into it a little bit, but I'm sure we'll have a whole
because it's related. But I think like that's like, because we're talking about learning more about insulin and how our body works. And so because I have someone that I love that has type 2 diabetes and seeing how it's being treated with them, I'm furious. Like there's no talk of, the only talk of nutrition is just eat healthier.
Yeah. I know that this isn't it's not the perfect analogy, but I think it's somewhat fitting, a little bit. Whereas when they treat type 2 diabetes, because they treat that with insulin, right? They need to inject your insulin. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that and what because you don't
start there, but that's where it ends up.
That's where it ends up. And everyone knows this insulin is like the big thing that you give people type 2 diabetes or whatever. It's the big drug. At least maybe more
not necessarily.
Well, in America, it's pretty big. It's pretty big.
It's big, but there's other ones that are also.
Maybe there's other ones. Sure. Yeah. Anyways, but it's giving people insulin to treat type 2 diabetes. And I almost kind of think of it as like, imagine if someone who's smoking and then you want to treat their addiction by giving them cigarettes, or if they're an alcoholic, you want to, I'll cure you by giving you alcohol. And it's like, well, that's not quite. It's like, that's obviously not a very good thing to do. I know the analogy isn't 100% accurate.
But like actually, because we talked about this before and I was thinking about it today, and it's accurate in the terms of the cells themselves. Like not when you're like looking at the person themselves, but if you look at the cells, what actually happens with your cells is they become resistant
Yeah, that's the insulin resistance.
To the insulin. So basically, it's like they need more insulin to allow glucose in. And so it's like they build up a tolerance. Yeah, so it's exactly the same thing, right? It's like if you do drugs or you drink, if you do that every day, well, you need a bit more each day to get that same buzz,
to get
right?
that high.
It's the same thing with insulin and as your cell. And that's exactly what they're doing. If you're injecting somebody with insulin, well, it's like you're giving them more drugs.
Yeah. So let's back up a step here and type 2 diabetes. Yeah. So what is type 2 diabetes?
Okay. So type 2 diabetes it's insulin resistance. So what happens is your cells, you're eating all of this glucose, right? And so
lots of carbs, lots of potato chips, a lot of pasta,
all the carbs,
breads.
And not just that, but all the refined carbs.
Yeah.
Right? Like
ice cream.
Yeah. Everything refined. It's so bad.
Smarties?
Yeah, Smarties.
M&Ms?
Yeah.
I don't like M&Ms anyways.
I love M&Ms. So what happens is like insulin's like knocking on the door. It's a house party, right? House party's full of your cells full of glucose, just like a house party full of people.
Sure.
And so your insulin comes, knocks on the door, but because
it says, hey, let this sugar in, let more in.
But it can't. No one can hear because the party's so loud and so big. Yeah. So what happens is your pancreas is like, oh shit, I got to knock louder. So I got to send out more insulin to knock louder on that cell's door. So it needs more insulin.
So your body starts producing more insulin.
Yeah, yeah. And so then what happens is eventually.
But meanwhile, all this sugar it's in your body, but has nowhere to go, right?
Yeah,
so it's.
So then what happens is so your insulin knocks louder on the door, is able to shove some more glucose or sugar into your cell. Yeah. But then eventually, like your cell can't handle anymore.
It's just too much sugar.
So it just spills out. The party spills out from the house and
all the drunk people on the streets throwing up all over the place. Yeah, yeah.
It's a block party now, and all that glucose
in your blood.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's what type 2 diabetes is.
And then it's so basically type 2 diabetes is that your blood sugar is just going too high. And what is the problem with high blood sugar? What effect does that have to your body?
Yeah, like it has a.
Yeah. I mean, the benefits, I guess, if you get a cut and start bleeding, then I mean, it's probably very
yummy.
Sweet and tasty.
It's tasty. Well, it does. It goes into your urine eventually, right? Because your kidneys clean your blood.
Like the sugar.
Yeah. So it all eventually goes out. But so that.
Not if you keep eating.
So that it can lead to like kidney disease. And so what you'll see is a lot of type 2 diabetics are on dialysis because their kidneys are they're done.
Because they're working so hard trying to clean out all this extra sugar, but then it's just like,
the really
can't take this anymore. Yeah. What are you doing to me?
The other thing that I found really interesting about how insulin resistance is so bad was heart disease, because I always thought heart disease is just fats. Just don't eat a lot of saturated fat. And that's what we were told for years, right?
Yep.
But what's really interesting is it actually is. The cause is carbs, because what happens is
carbohydrates.
Yeah. Yep. So once once the sugar goes from your cells are full of sugar. So that sugar goes into your liver, and then your liver makes that sugar into fat.
Yep.
And that's the fat that causes the problem that clogs your arteries and that, And
it's not the fat from your coconut oil or
not at all.
Your peanuts
one really fascinating thing is there was studies showing that people that ate a lot of saturated fat in their diet were actually protected.
So what's saturated fat? Where do you get that from?
So that's like any animal meats, coconut oil, olive oil. That's saturated fat.
That's not animal stuff.
No,
coconut
but it's no, but it's still that's another example of saturated
natural
fat.
Fat. I don't know if that's a thing. So what's trans fat? I don't know. It's getting off topic. But that's supposedly the bad fat, because like all the products now are like 0 trans fat.
Yeah, so
on like a bag of potato chips, right?
It's like a Franken fat that they've made, and the reason why they use the trans fats,
it's like vegetable oil, like margarine, all that kind of shit.
Yeah. But even some of those now have they don't trans fats, but they're still like Franken fats. But it's basically...
What's a Franken fat? What's that?
Like Frankenstein. Like they've just made it up. And the whole reason they use trans fats was to extend shelf life of processed foods. So
of course, because they don't last long enough.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so high insulin and that insulin resistance causes all of these problems.
And that gets going back to the whole thing about fat and eating like healthier or natural fats, is that it doesn't trigger as much of an insulin response because I don't know, it just doesn't, because the sugar doesn't go straight to your cells. Your body just takes it, and I don't know what your body does to fat when you eat it.
Yeah, that's kind of like my next research project. Yeah, how that's metabolized.
But it's like it metabolizes and breaks it down, but it doesn't break it down in a way that releases a bunch of insulin.
Well, yeah, because it doesn't break down into glucose. Yeah. It doesn't break down into sugar.
Into something else that your body uses. And that's the whole basis of the ketogenic diet, is really high in fats and high
low
in
carbs. No, just high in fats, low carbs.
Yeah, and very small amounts of protein. Yeah. Like what, up to 25% protein? 20?
Even
it depends 50, on who.
Like between 15, 20, I think.
Yeah, and the rest is fats.
Yeah.
And, but then, I mean, I have my own issues with the keto diet because I don't think it's very sustainable to just eat all that animal protein. And that's another
That's a whole
thing
like
for another
5
day,
other podcasts
as to whether vegan and vegetarian versus meat. There's all kinds of stuff. But anyways, so then you have type 2 diabetes, which is basically insulin resistance. Yeah. So you're constantly pouring lots of you have sugar busting out of your cells. It's all high in your blood, and that's really bad because it causes various different diseases. Yeah. And then this whole thing about injecting insulin is the whole idea is because doctors are saying, well, hey, you have too much blood in your blood, in your sugar. Your blood sugar
in your blood.
Yeah, your blood sugar's high, too high, dangerously high. So we have to get it out somehow. Yeah. The only way we know how to do that is to inject more insulin to cram that sugar into your cells, liver, whatever.
Yeah. So let's back up though, because that's not the first step, and I don't want to.
No, it's not the first step to treating diabetes, but I'm just saying that's what happens. That's the purpose of why people or doctors give insulin injections.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes. And so, but I mean, they don't start off there. They do, but the medications themselves, it's the same principle, right? It either forces your body to make more insulin, or it increases your cell's sensitivity to insulin. Yeah. What I researched this week, actually, which kind of shook me, was it also stops your enzymes in your stomach from breaking down the carbs. So can you imagine
what?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
This is a drug that does this?
This is a drug that does this. And then there's another one that slows the movement of food through your stomach. So then guess what the side effects are? Gas, huge gas,
constipation. I don't know, the worst shits ever.
Yeah, like I read that and I was like, oh my god, like that's a thing,
like death. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and then even like reading all the side effects of these medications, it's ridiculous. But the thing that made me angry about this is
above and beyond that.
Above and beyond that is that like these patients, they never get better. That's why doctors will tell them, no, it's a chronic and progressive disease. It's never going to get...
like once you have it? Yeah. But that's not true. Everyone knows it's reversible.
That's not what doctors tell people, though, right?
Serious?
Like,
I don't understand.
Even when I worked at the pharmacy, like, it's not...
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. And even back then, we didn't know about it. So that would have been interesting to know. You should go back and get another job.
I know. That's what I was just like, oh, I'd love to talk to some of the pharmacists about what they think about this, because it I don't know. These people have a death sentence, right?
Well, because if you're going to get treated, because it's like, oh, you're an alcoholic. Well, we're just going to keep feeding alcohol, and maybe, or I'll give you this different type of alcohol. It's not as bad.
It's like it doesn't get better. And the thing is like they're told to lose weight, but then because their insulin is so high all the time, because they're taking the medications, they can't lose weight.
And like I said, because their insulin's so high that their body says, I cannot go in and burn this fat. I can't. There's too much insulin, and therefore you're always going to be hungry, and then you're going to be eating,
or the thing
and you're going to eat carbs because you don't understand nutrition. Sorry, I'm totally cutting you off.
Yeah, or the thing is like they try and lose weight. Like I think a lot of them, they're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I think they do have access to a dietitian at that point. But I don't think even the dietitians are well versed on this.
No,
after talking to my family member, I even back then, before I knew about this, I did not agree with the advice that was given. So even they don't know about it. And so, they try their best to lose weight, because they know it's a serious chronic disease. They try their best to lose weight, and then they fail or they binge because they're hungry. Yep. And then they feel like, this is just my life.
Yeah.
I suck. And they feel horrible about themselves because they can't lose any weight.
And it gets worse.
But they're not given the right information. So of course they can't.
Yeah. And then they get something happens to their body. They get a cut or whatever, like a simple cut, and then it can't heal.
Yeah.
Something happens.
That leads to amputation.
And then like, and once you get amputated, it's like, you're going to die. Like it's so frustrating.
Why I'm saying,
like,
and that's why I was so angry. Yeah. I was like, this is not okay.
And this is what we do. Like, it's known. We know exactly how to, like this. If someone has type 2 diabetes, I'd be like, all right, you know what you're going to do?
Just don't.
You're going to stop fucking eating. You're going to stop fucking eating and you're going to start fasting. Like, it's not like, okay, you're going to not eat. Like some people that are hardcore, they're like, I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to fast. And they just go from nothing to fast, especially if you're really overweight. You can do it. And then it's like their diabetes is like reversed in like a week. Yeah. It's insane. But
the one story in Dr. Jason Fung's Complete Guide to Fasting, this guy had been on actual insulin injections. So he had moved past the oral meds to the actual insulin injections. He was on injections for 11 years. Within 2 weeks of fasting, he didn't need them anymore.
It's ridiculous.
Shocking.
Your body's like, oh, finally I can start clearing out the sugar like naturally or start burning some fat and whatever, right? Like it's
shocking.
Just
and so it's like,
body.
As a doctor, when you take that oath to do no harm, I mean, you're doing harm.
Yeah, but there's also this is what I've been taught.
Well,
and
this is
what's
the paradigm.
Teaching, and this is what the pharmaceutical companies are pushing. I don't have time to research. Can you imagine the doctors research every single drug? In fact, this is a whole other philosophical level, is that doctors should not even be prescribing drugs. It should be pharmacists prescribing drugs, because they actually went to school to study how drugs affect the body. Doctors do not know how drugs affect the body.
Let me tell you all the stories I have from the pharmacy about that.
Yeah,
they were crazy.
Oh no, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like going to, I don't know, a chiropractor if you want to get a massage. I don't know. It's like they don't study that kind of stuff, right? Just don't go to chiropractors either. That's just that's a whole nother snake oil kind of
my gosh, there's so many other podcast spin-offs we've talked about.
I've never talked to you about chiropractors. Wasn't it the guy who found it, some kind of crazy guy who founded chiropractor?
You just have to listen to Joe Rogan's like rant on chiropractors and you'll never go to one again.
Yeah, like I've been to one too, and it's like, I was like, I think one time I had an adjustment, which is kind of insane. Like it's when your spine needs adjustments anyways. But because you sign a waiver, because there's like that chiropractic seizure that you can have, which can like paralyze you. And he did this adjustment, and I had a shot of electricity all the way up my spine, up to my neck. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, that's it. Went back maybe once or twice, and then that was it. I never went back again, and I will never go back again.
Yeah, it's scary.
Anyways, that's a little bit of ways of what we're talking about. But yeah, so like if you for me, what I know right now, and then maybe this will change. Maybe we'll talk in 6 months. We'll revisit this. Yeah. But if you have type 2 diabetes or you're on your way there, start right now by. You're gonna cut.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut you off.
Okay, go ahead.
Because yes, it's really good advice to start fasting if you have type 2 diabetes.
Well, no, I didn't even let me finish what I was gonna say.
Okay, go ahead.
No, but it doesn't have to be like you need to. The first thing is to adjust your diet and change what you eat, and reduce the amount of carbohydrates you have and increase the amount of fats that you have, so that you're not spiking your insulin as much. And start slow in the process of learning how to fast by start by skipping breakfast, and try to prolong the amount of time that your body is in a fasted state. So give your body time to digest what's already in there, to clear out the sugar that's already in there, and start getting some kind of a balance. Give your digestive system a break and let it kind of do its thing. So, and then you kind of go into this whole fasting thing, which again helps you.
Okay. So we're going to back up a little bit.
Okay. You want to back up?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's back it up.
So
this is why I talk. Cause I mean, this is I probably have a simplistic view in my head as to how.
No, you don't have a simplistic view. You just don't have all the information, I don't think. So I think the number one thing that you need to do is talk to your doctor. Number one.
Yeah. Just a second.
Yep.
We'll be right out. Okay, Maya? Yeah, we'll be right out. Okay. We're just filming it. We're just doing a podcast right now. Okay. Here, pass that paper. Our daughter's just passing us a paper here as we're going. Here, give it to me and you finish what you were saying.
No. Yep.
What is it?
That's fine.
What's going on here?
Well, they were just having trouble with the game and they needed some assistance.
So Mike, can you please come close the door? So our daughter just came in to us and gave us a note. No, you can't close the door. Maya, you need to come close the door, please. Okay, so just have to talk a little bit louder there so she can hear. All right, so where were we? So yes, you were lecturing me about how bad my simplistic view is. No, it wasn't simplistic.
So no, the first thing you need to do is definitely talk to your doctor, because if you are on meds for type 2 diabetes and you start fasting, your blood sugar could drop lethally low. You could die. So
yeah, if you have no blood sugar.
So you need to either, if you're like, talk to your doctor. If your doctor's not on board, and if you have type 2 diabetes, most times you'll have like a blood sugar monitor. So really be monitoring your blood sugar like very closely. And if you see that it's dropping like dangerously though, then just go eat something.
Just have a granola. Just have a small piece of chocolate.
Yeah, so that's
right. Just spike it right back up.
Yeah, but I think if you do need to like talk to your doctor so that they can monitor you, because then if you need to stop taking some meds, and you need to, otherwise, it can be really serious what can happen.
I know. So I know what you're saying, and I mean, we're not here giving out logistic or like credible medical advice. Like we're not here to advise people, and I'd say I know what I do, but like these doctors, like these are the same doctors that are keeping you like dead.
Agree.
And you're going to go to them, say, hey, I want to try this, and they'll be like, no, you can't do that. It's going to fucking hurt you. It's going to harm you, all this kind of stuff. But then, I'm just saying, go talk to your doctor, but chances are he's going to tell you that it's not okay to do. And then what? Then you're on your own anyways. But sure, of course. Tell them what you're doing. But
then this is my thing
and
too.
Educate them.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Is then you tell them what they're doing, and then
tell them what you're doing,
And then if whether they're on board or not, then if you do start fasting and you do have to come off your medication, well, then you've just educated them that this actually works, and they need to talk to their other patients about it.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is decrease your amount of carbs, but more specifically, carbs are not bad. And I think now they're becoming demonized. And what needs to be demonized is the processed carbs.
Yeah, like carbohydrates and fruits and vegetables.
If you're having oatmeal, like that's, even whole wheat pasta it's not great, but it's,
it's better than the white stuff as an example, because the flour is more processed.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's okay. And then, definitely, like you said, start slow on the fasting. If you can, because that's how I started. Like I would push breakfast back to 10 a.m. And then eventually I felt okay about it, and I push it back until noon. So I think if you start slow like that and give it time, because you need to like recondition your hunger as well, right?
Or you could just be like me. I just don't give a fuck. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. I don't have time for this. I'm going to start slow. Just fuck it. Just go.
Okay.
Do you want to get it done or not? You want to lose that weight? This is what you got to do.
Yeah. There are two methods.
And has it not been working?
I'm not saying it hasn't.
I'm just saying, because you're like, start slow and like go talk to your doctor because stuff might get low blood. It's like, you're not going to get fucking low blood sugar and die after skipping fucking breakfast. You know what I mean? Like when you're saying start slow, but you can't, don't ever not eat before 12 o'clock until you talk to your doctor, because shit might happen. It's like, fuck no. You know, this guy's 200 pounds overweight.
And this is like...
Start by not eating fucking breakfast. You're not going to die by fucking lunchtime.
But like this is exactly like goes to show like the differences in our personalities. I'm like, so. I'm going to just a toe in.
Why would you do
how
that?
It goes. And you're just like, I'm jumping all the way in, motherfucker.
If you're just send me an email, or if you're watching this on YouTube, a comment, and like, what do you think? Like, what's better? Just jumping in the lake and just getting it over with, or like tiptoeing in, like,
but it's funny forever. Because I do jump right in the lake, like for real, jump in the lake, because I hate that.
Well, but anyways, you're lying. You're lying.
What are you talking about?
You always tiptoe in. I'm not ready.
No, at the pool. I'm just like jump right in. But I just
mean, like, if we're going into a lake and you're going in on the beach, you're always tiptoeing in. Anyways, it's not even about you. I just mean like in general. I know. Like, what do you think? Are you more of a just dive right in, or just like, no, I gotta warm up to it, whatever. And that's the same thing of what you're saying. Obviously it's a terrible analogy. And you know what? I'm trying to say my thing, and then, it's fine. I know. You're after me. You always got to throw it in there. And then anyways, talk to your doctor, but I mean, he's the one who's fucking killing you anyway. So you want to keep going to him? Go right ahead.
100%.
Sorry, I'm just going super aggressive, because like I said, it's frustrating and it's upsetting, because people that we know are on this path, and it's like, their doctors are giving them very bad advice, and it's like, you know what? If you just
some research,
but it's not just just change how you eat. Change the stuff.
Sorry, I mean like the doctors do research.
Oh no,
like,
of
that
course.
should be your fucking job as a doctor. You should be up to date on everything.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a hard job too. I mean, I like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. They always got to worry about people suing them or whatever, this and that, malpractice, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So like, who wants to be the doctor to be like, oh, well, I told my guy who's type 2 diabetes to stop fucking eating and he fucking died. It's like, what the fuck? And, you know what I mean? It's like, I was the first guy to, like once it gets to that tipping point where it is more mainstream or the research just keeps coming out. Mm-hmm. Shit in the medical world, it just takes so much time, right? Yeah. So, but they're fairly quick at pushing drugs though, when there's lots of money to be had.
Funny how that is, eh?
Yeah. That's another thing too, is like, is this a big fucking pharmaceutical thing where the knowledge is just not getting out there? Because it's like, I don't know, how much money is being made in healthcare by treating people that have illnesses related to obesity and being overweight. Yeah. Is it almost, like everything? Like not everything, but a lot of it?
I would say it's like 90%.
You think 90% of all healthcare is like symptoms and treating things that stem from obesity?
Bad nutrition, I think, would be what I would say.
Which leads to obesity, right? I mean, I mean, we could talk about the 0.00 whatever percentage that are like severely underweight, but that's
most medications. Like when I was at the pharmacy, what we called the fast movers, most of those medications were diabetes, for heart disease, for gastric reflux. That's a big one. That was weird. I didn't realize that was actually a thing that people take meds for all the time. Apparently it is.
What is it?
And then
what is it?
It's like
like heartburn?
Or like acid really reflux. Bad? I guess so. Yeah, to take meds for it. So, and then the other thing was mental illness. So specifically like depression. So, which I mean, that'll probably be another podcast because there's so much evidence to suggest nutrition affects depression. So
yeah, I mean, it's all about hormones and it's like it's all these chemical imbalances in your body that can be changed.
If you just don't eat like an asshole.
Yeah. But I know it's funny because I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But then you could start refining it even more and getting into it. Because you say that, but someone's like, well, I'm not an asshole. But yet, maybe they're eating, I don't know, TV dinners or something that the packaging is said to, like how they have stuff now, it's green packaging or whatever makes it look like it's healthy.
It's all natural.
Yeah, but it's not, right? Yeah. So it's like, and to be honest, most people that are assholes, they don't know they're assholes, right? I mean, there's a couple of guys who are like, yeah, fuck you, I'm an asshole, and I'm going to get out of the way, and that's them.
I know.
There's I think it's just a lack of knowledge for some people, and some people know and they just don't care, or they can't.
Yep.
Or I shouldn't say they can't; they're just not ready to.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we've talked about plenty of times is that. At the end of the day, you can preach knowledge or whatever to as many people as you want. But if that person is not receptive to what you're saying and ready to actually want to make a change,
they're not going to.
It's not going to happen.
No, it doesn't matter what you say.
It doesn't matter.
What evidence you present.
Yeah. And even though like healthier foods, like for me, they just taste better.
And they make you feel good.
They taste good. They make you feel good.
You feel like shit after you have a bag of chips.
Like a freshly squeezed like orange with some mango in there or whatever, and some spinach, like juiced. Actually, we haven't had juice in a long time because we don't have our juicer anymore. But I miss it. It's so good.
It's good
juice. But same thing. You just have some fruits and vegetables. Like it's just really tasty. Or if you make a nice stir fry up with all those vegetables and put some oil in there and a little bit of salt even.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
It's good stuff.
It's so good. Anyways, I'm going to go eat.
Yeah.
Because
I'm hungry. Let's talk about food is getting me hungry.
Let's talk about food. Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, so that's a good introduction, I think, to insulin. So.
Do you want me to do like a quick recap or do you think we should just leave it?
You got 30 seconds.
Oh, shit.
Go.
Insulin. Okay, so insulin.
What is it and why should I care?
So insulin is the hormone that allows your cells to take up sugar to use it for energy. It also, so that's its number one job. Its number two job is to store that extra energy as fat. Mm-hmm. So when you're insulin resistant, it means that there's already too much glucose in your cells and you need more insulin to shove more sugar in there.
Yep.
And as long as insulin is elevated, as long as there's an insulin in your blood, you're not going to be able to get at your fat.
Yeah. Your body cannot use fat for energy.
Because that's the whole point. The whole evolutionary advantage of insulin is to store that fat.
Yep.
So
it's pretty simple. So if you want to lose fat, control your insulin levels. And not monitor it, but just watch out. Simple.
Very simple.
Pretty simple. I've been doing it. Lost 46-ish pounds so far in about 100 days. Average about a little less than half a pound a day.
Yeah.
And
I've lost that last stubborn amount of fat. I lost that.
Yep.
And this is the lowest I've been since before the kids.
Yep. Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Still having even some carbohydrates. Still have
I have actually lots of carbs.
Still have whole wheat bread.
Yeah. Sometimes
still
even have white bread.
Still have pizza every once in a while. Yeah. I mean, of course, it's not.
We're not perfect. Yeah.
But for the majority of the stuff, it's vegetables and it's fats.
Yeah.
And
but we're letting our body get to the fat freezer and
And that's the thing too. That's when you've been fasted for 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. Your metabolism is up, and whatever you put in there, it's going to crank
burn it.
Crank right through that.
Well, I think
don't put in shit. But if you have a little bit.
Yeah, but then I think just that one last thing is that the really important thing is we don't restrict our calories.
No, I'm afraid of that because I'm like, if I don't eat enough, I'm like, I'm going to start dropping my metabolism.
Yeah.
So it's counterintuitive.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. And anyways, we'll have a big one on fasting because there's lots of.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout this whole new show that we do.
Yeah.
Because I love it. I'm having fun.
Me too.
You enjoy it?
I do. A lot. Yeah, a lot. So I hope that was easy enough for people to understand.
If not, just ask us any questions. Shoot us.
Yeah. And I've written a couple blog posts too that it'll have it all written out.
Yeah. Just
easier to read and maybe understand.
Insulin,
Yeah. So
I have pictures, little pop-up books and everything. Easy for you to understand. Scratch and sniff.
Yes, that's my favorite.
Yeah. What does insulin smell like? Find out after
Cotton candy.
Cotton candy?
That's my guess.
I guess it would be kind of sugary, eh?
Yeah, probably.
Or would it not be sugary?
I don't know. Salty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gross. Now I'm thinking of something else. And it's time.
This is where we shut her down.
It's time to go. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Like Andrea said, if you do have any questions or if it's not clear or whatever, just send us a comment, I guess. If you're listening to this on a podcast, I don't know, shoot me. Find me on YouTube. You know what my email is. I don't know what it is for this.
It's just odum@nutup.ca.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Shoot me an email. Shoot Andrew an email.
Yeah.
Leave us a comment and we'll answer the questions. Or if there's anything that we said that was wrong. I mean, we're still learning, right?
Yeah,
if you know more than us,
correct us.
Give us that knowledge. We're always looking to learn.
Yep.
And who knows, in 6 months, we'll probably revisit this topic.
Oh, God. Science changes so fast.
We'll be like, remember when we said insulin was this and this?
Wrong.
It's all wrong.
It's all wrong.
It wasn't insulin at all. Yeah. It was whatever.
Yeah.
I
think that's the point is we're on this journey, we're learning and we're doing the best we can. And so definitely if we got something wrong, well, we're open to correcting things.
Yep. Yeah. But, as we all know, I generally don't get things wrong. So we're probably good.
There it is.
And with that,
Chris by 5.
We'll end the show. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.